All right, let's go over the bucket system for the 2025 Open Championship. If you don't know what that is, welcome to the channel. It is very specific to SweetSpotDFS. It is a tool that allows us to look at the most important stats of this event and compare it to the golfers in the field this week to determine which golfers or how many golfers from each of the buckets we want to put into our lineups. It doesn't really tell us which golfer to choose, but we do have a limited amount of golfers we can pick from in each of these buckets. And obviously we can use our brains to figure out what are better choices than others. Who are better choices than others? So that's what we'll be getting into. A quick reminder, there are giveaways that I'm doing this entire week. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but I'll go ahead and put them on the screen right now. One is just called the Win the Pot giveaway. So it starts at $20, and for every one new subscriber, I add $2 to the pot. Unfortunately, I lost a subscriber, and we haven't gained any. So no matter what, it starts at 20. But if you want to add a little bit more to the pot, subscribe if you haven't already. And I will be running this giveaway Tuesday, July 15th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. It is during the live stream. So you guys can check in with me then. Leave any questions. I'll be building lineups for people. So again, Tuesday, I'll be live 7 p.m. And also, to kind of go along, piggyback off of the subscriber goal, whenever I reach 1,000 subscribers, I'm giving away $1,000. So it's just an easy way to encourage you guys to subscribe if you haven't, just a little bit more. Now, if you want an entry into this giveaway, you are going to have to create an account at SweetSpotDFS.com. Free of charge. You don't have to put any credit card information, nothing. Go create an account there, and you will automatically be entered into the giveaway. I forgot to mention how to get an entry into the giveaway for the previous giveaways. Let me put that back up on the screen. If you want an entry into this giveaway, you have to comment on the videos that I post this week. I currently have 3 out there. This will be 4. So go comment on all those. You can get a max up to 4 entries. So make it super simple for you guys. But that's all I have. I don't want to spend too much time talking about giveaways. I know some people get annoyed with that kind of thing. I get it. But I wanted to mention it so you guys don't miss out on the opportunity to make a little bit more money. Okay. Let's go ahead and share the screen. This is the website that I have. It's called SweetSpotDFS.com. You can't really see it. If I zoom in just a little bit, okay, you can see the top there. If you want to follow along with me, go under Fantasy Tools, click Cheat Sheet. This will open up another page, and just scroll down on this page until you get to this cheat sheet. Because if you want to follow along with me, you can click right here, and everything that you see on this screen, or everything that I'm going to share with you in this video, you can find on this screen, including the bucket system. That's what this is right here. So there are tabs at the bottom of the spreadsheet. You can navigate through those to find what you need to look at, because again, you can follow along with me. So let's just jump right into it. Normally I do a review of the previous tournament, but I'm going to save some time. We're just going to get into the nitty gritty and just dive down into each of these buckets. So the very first thing that I am going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put a filter on the bucket system. You guys can do the same thing. There's a little button at the top. There's a bunch of them, I should say, but find the one that has a filter on it and find the one that says the bucket system. You drill down on that. That'll provide all these filters for all the headers of this little matrix that I've created. There are 6 total stats that I look at. I look at last year's finishing position. I look at last week's finishing position. Course history, which in this case will be tournament history. I understand that can be confusing, but since there's a rota that typically happens with the Open Championship, we don't see the same golf course over and over again. But because this is an Open Championship, we're just going to call it tournament information. And the reason that I look at that and why I think it's important is because this tournament is unique. It's a major champion. It's a major championship. People play this tournament differently. Your best golfers, the cream rises to the top at these types of events. But furthermore, I also want to find the golfers that may not have super good tournament history. The bucket system will point that out for us. So we'll get more into that here shortly. I'll show you how that works. I also have recent form, which is looking at the last 2 months or the last 8 weeks, including this week. So it's really the last 7 available events, the last 7 weeks of events plus this one. Obviously, there are no results that combine from this week into the recent form, but I count this week as the 2 months. And I think that's a perfect time frame for recent form. That might have been a little confusing, but just know it's the last 7 weeks is what I include in the recent form. Then I look at salaries. This isn't a performance stat, but it is a ranking system. The ranking system comes from DraftKings, obviously. So I want to see how well golfers with certain salaries do, and then compare it to this year's Open Championship. And then I do have strokes gained stats. Now, the thing is, if you want to read anything about the bucket system, I would recommend going to the website, SweetSpotDFS.com, go into articles. I'm going to open up a new window, and you get to read about the bucket system here. There's a thing called combo buckets. You can kind of ignore that, but you want to look at the bucket system. If you drill down on that, you'll learn all about the bucket system, what goes into each of these stats, the breakdowns, especially for strokes gained stats. So that's the thing that I wanted to mention to you guys right here is strokes gained stats are a bit different. I do them a bit different than most people. So go ahead, check out the article, read what it's all about, and that should make it a little bit more clear for you guys in understanding what the bucket system is. But I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to make this easier for your viewing experience. I'm going to zoom in a lot, and then I am only going to look at each of these buckets stat by stat. So the first one I'm going to look at, the last year buckets. Now, again, this is last year's finishing position. And I have these all within ranges of 1st to 20, 21 to 40, 41 to 60, 61 to 80, 80 plus, so 80th place or worse, which includes did not play, or it includes missed cuts and withdraws, and then also did not play. Now, obviously, that's not a performance stat. I know, but I like to keep track. I like to keep track of how many golfers who didn't play last year do well at a specific event, especially this event. So that's what we'll be looking at. Now, if you want to be able to read the bucket system, these are the 2 most important columns right here. One is minimum projection, or for short, min proj, and then maximum projection. So those are the 2 columns I want you to focus on any of the stats that I'll be talking about. For the minimum projection, it's just, quite frankly, looking at this last year one bucket, looking at how many golfers are in that bucket, as well as looking at the strength of field points that it provides, and the success rate of seeing it inside the top 10, golfers from this bucket inside the top 10, and then determining based off of this year's field, how many do we expect to finish inside the top 10? The reason I care about this is if you want to take down a GPP, it is very important to get at least 5, if not 6 of your golfers to finish inside the top 10. So that's the most important thing for me when I'm trying to build lineups, is getting 6 of my golfers inside the top 10. And what better way than to do a breakdown of each of these stats and then find the golfers that will give us our best opportunity to do that. So the first bucket to look at, last year ones, I want somewhere between 1 to 3. 1 to 3 golfers from this bucket to represent in my lineup. Now, I shouldn't say it that way. Never mind. I'm just projecting 1 to 3 to be inside the top 10. So if you want to follow along with me, the easiest way to do is to put a filter on the bucket, or on the dream sheet. So again, here's the cheat sheet for you guys. If you go into the dream sheet, there's a little filter up here, and you would want to drill down on DraftKings. I'm going to go back to my sheet. I'm going to do the same thing, put it under DraftKings. And then from here, we want to look at last year ones. So I clear everything out of the last year column, clear it out and just put 1. And you will see a limited amount of golfers. There are 18. There are 18 golfers from last year who finished inside the top 20 of the Open Championship here at this Open Championship, which is kind of interesting because you'd expect there to be 20 golfers here, but obviously 2 could not play or just didn't qualify. Going back to the bucket system. Now, how to read these projections, we round down in the minimum projection, so 1.61 goes down to 1, and we round up in the maximum projection, 2.68 goes to 3. So I'm projecting 1 to 3 golfers from this bucket to be inside the top 10. And I'm also validating there are 18 golfers from last year's event that finished inside the top 20 in this event. That's the wrong way to say that. There are 18 golfers who finished inside the top 20 of last year's event in this year's event. So when we look at this, we got 2 expensive golfers, but 1 really expensive golfer in Scotty Scheffler. Then it goes to John Rahm at 10.4, Xander at 9.7, and so on and so forth. Now, the projection is 1 to 3 we can expect to finish inside the top 10. Here is the common thing we have to ask ourselves every time that Scotty Scheffler is in the field, or just if there are a lot of golfers that are 10K and above. The one thing that we need to ask ourselves is, if Scotty doesn't win, can he be in an optimal lineup? Furthermore, if 2 of these golfers that are 10K and above finish inside the top 10, can you play anybody else from down below? And it's not so much, can you fit a lineup with at least 3 of these guys, or at least 1 other guy to go with Scotty and Rahm? That's, yes, you could, because there's 5K golfers down here, but are they good choices? That's also what you got to consider. So the first thing I always like to think of is, okay, Scotty Scheffler's here. He's almost a shoo-in to get a top 10. Doesn't mean he's going to win the event, and doesn't mean he's going to be in the optimal lineup. It's obviously at 14,200. The right kinds of golfers need to finish inside the top 10, like cheap golfers, that is, for him to be a part of any GPP winning lineup or any optimal lineup. So we can almost exclude Scotty from this bucket. And I've said this in the past, there has to be a Scotty filter when it comes to these buckets. So what I like to do when I think about putting a Scotty filter together, so Scotty's in this bucket and this projection's 1 to 3. I automatically will remove 1 from the minimum and make this a 0 to 3 bucket, because Scotty could still be a part of that this bucket and finish inside the top 10, but he might not be able to win you any money. He might not be able to help you take down a GPP, is what I meant to say. So I moved that minimum down to 0. So this is an actual 0 to 3 bucket. So looking at this, yeah, I can exclude Scotty, and then I can pick up to, I would say just pick up to 2 golfers. If you're not putting Scotty in your lineup, then just consider this bucket as 0 to 2 bucket. And quite frankly, I mean, like Rahm and Schauffele together just seem like an interesting duo just to start your lineups with. If you're going that route, I wouldn't add anyone else down here. But there's a possibility that you might like someone else. You know, obviously there are 18 golfers on the screen. You want to select somewhere between 0 to 3, because that's all that I'm projecting to finish inside the top 10. You can ignore my advice, more power to you, but when I follow the bucket system, I know the bucket system hits at a 95% rate, meaning there are 6 stat categories and 6 buckets in each of those stat categories. That equals out to be 36 total buckets. Every single week, we see at least 33 out of 36 buckets correct. Could this be the one bucket that's incorrect? Will we see 4 golfers from this bucket to finish inside the top 10? We could. It's possible, but unlikely. The statistics wouldn't bear it out. So this is what I love about the bucket system. There are some good golfers to fill our lineups with, like especially if you start with Scotty Scheffler. How appealing would it be to grab one of these guys down here, if not 2 of them? Well, if that's the case, do you really anticipate Jon Rahm or Xander finishing outside of the top 10? Like either one of them? You know, what are the odds of both of them missing the top 10? Like finishing outside the top 10? I bet the odds aren't very good. I mean, the odds would be pretty high, I suppose, right? I don't know what they actually would be, but it's unlikely. Unlikely both of them finish outside the top 10. So again, if you are starting a lineup with Scotty and this bucket is a 0 to 3 bucket, like you want to play 3 golfers max, well, if you go with Scotty, you probably can't play either of these two guys. It's possible you could go Scotty and Xander. Don't get me wrong, it is possible. And then you could probably put like a third golfer in your lineup down here. And it would still be a struggle to make a lineup, but you still could do it. I went over this in the first look, the DraftKings first look video that I did. So it's possible, unlikely, but still, yeah, very much possible. So that's how you read the bucket system. I'm not going to tell you like, I'll give you some of my favorite golfers. Or I'll just give you some golfers that I wouldn't mind playing, but I'm not going to go over every single bucket because then I'd be a bit redundant and telling you guys which golfers that I like. So obviously I like Scotty. I do want to put Scotty in my lineups. Who I just highlighted, Scotty, Xander, and Tristan Lawrence. I'm still sold on Tristan Lawrence. A buddy, Byron Lindeque, back 9 bets. He's firmly on to Tristan, but Tristan missed the cut last week. That's okay. We'll get into the last week buckets, and I bet you anything we can play up to like 2 or 3 golfers who missed the cut from the week before. I think it's going to be just fine. But also like there are other names down here. I like Matthew Jordan. I like Daniel Brown. Daniel Brown's a sneaky play at $5,800. You could put those 3 guys together, Scotty, Xander, and Daniel Brown, and it would work out just fine. Now on the flip side, if you didn't want to start with Scotty, the whole bucket's wide open for you. Maybe don't go 10-9-9, but maybe you could build a lineup that way and get away with it. Maybe you go 10-9 and anyone less than, I guess, Russell Henley down, 7,900 down. That way you'll have a little bit of flexibility with building the rest of your lineup. That's a possibility. You can go that route. So I'm not going to spend too much time on last year ones. I'll just go through each of these buckets and I'll give you the projection and how I feel about it. So the next bucket is last year 2s. 0 to 2 is the projection. Again, that's how many golfers that we anticipate seeing inside the top 10. Starts with Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay. Those are the only 2 guys 8K and above. And then it drops down Spieth, Burns, Straka. This is really interesting because if you watch the first look that I had, the DraftKings first look, Sam Burns and Sepp Straka to me are just absolute steals. Sam Burns is 5th in my model at $7,400. I almost feel like it's a no-brainer. And I was thinking about going with the Scotty Scheffler lineup and putting Burns with him. And now that I see that Justin Thomas is here, or even Jordan Spieth, I don't mind a combo of Burns and Spieth, or Burns and JT, or maybe even going Sepp Straka, Spieth, or JT. There's enough names here that I do like to play, and this is another wonderful thing. Like I said, like it limits you. It limits you from being able to play too many of these guys. So again, I'm projecting 0 to 2 golfers from this bucket to finish inside the top 10. Does that give you enough reason to fade Justin Thomas? Are you going to want to play, I would assume, a chalky Sam Burns? Corey Connors is here. So too is Ryan Fox. Ryan Fox has had wonderful success at the Open Championship, and he just won on tour not too long ago. He might be a high-owned golfer. I've heard some buzz over Chris Kirk this week because he plays well on slow greens, which you anticipate these being. It's really up to you guys. My leans personally, if I'm building a Scotty Scheffler lineup, I think Burns is going to be in maybe 70% of my Scotty Scheffler lineups. And I imagine that's going to be true for most people. But I do like the kind of a combination of Scheffler, Burns, and say Ryan Fox, or even like Scheffler, JT, and Burns, or just any type of combination that has Burns in it with JT. Probably not going to go to Cantlay. I can't stand playing Cantlay. I will have some exposure to him, but not a lot. Spieth seems like a great play. Connors, Fox, love it. And I probably am going to ignore the rest of them, to be quite honest with you. Going into the next bucket, last year threes. Starts with Bobby Mack and at $9,000. Joaquin Niemann and Brooks, 8K and above. Now, this bucket is another 0 to 2 bucket. Matt Fitzpatrick is here. I like the idea of playing Matt Fitzpatrick. I also like the idea of playing Rasmus Højgaard or Harris English. Those are great plays, especially, again, if you're going to build a Scotty lineup. Having low-priced golfers with purpose, putting these golfers in your lineup with purpose because they're in this bucket just makes the most sense to me. So I don't mind playing those guys. I don't necessarily care for any of these golfers 8K and above. I'm just going to leave it at that. The next bucket last year, fours, 0 to 2 for this bucket as well. Only 10 golfers in the bucket, where we normally see around 9, so it's pretty much on par. It should be pretty easy. You have Hideki Matsuyama, the highest ranked golfer, I think, in the field. Is that true? He's 12th. Yeah, he's 12th in the world. Aaron Rai is 36th in the world. I don't care really for any of this entire bucket. Notably, Nikolai Højgaard just qualified with his performance at the Genesis Scottish Open, so it's a decent play. Hey, this bucket is a 0 to 2 bucket for a reason. I don't see a single anchor play that I really want in my lineups. I don't mind Hideki, but I'm certainly not trying to force him in. Last year fives. This is a 1 to 3 bucket. You remember me talking about golfers who missed the cut last week? This is what I'm saying. At most Open Championships, most, because this little frequency rate column right here says 88.89%. I guarantee you that's 8 out of the last 9 years that I record data, and it might even be more than that. Could be 10 out of 11, although I would imagine the number's a little bit better. Yeah, that would be better. Because this goes back to 2013. Oh, 2014 would be the last one. So it would be 11 years. Yeah, so it's either 9 out of 11 or something around that, but 88.89%. Frequency means it happens at least once per year. So that high of a frequency rate means this has happened once per year, all the way except for maybe 1 or 2, where we have at least 1. Well, that's where it starts at. The minimum starts at 1. The max is 3. I think that's just fine. And then another big thing to look at is how many golfers are in this bucket this year versus how many we typically see. It's right on the button, 34. So we take a look at golfers who missed the cut at the Open Championship last year. It starts with Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, Tommy Fleetwood, Ludwig Oberg, all 9K and above, and then you get Tyrrell Hatton and Victor Hovland in the 8K range. What a bucket. This is one of those that's going to be very difficult to choose from. If you're not on Scotty Scheffler, Rory seems like a pretty good choice. If you are going to build some Scotty Scheffler lineups, you could put Tommy Fleetwood at $9,500 in your lineup, and that would be just fine. Or Ludwig, or Hatton, or Hovland. That all works as well. Now remember, this is a 1 to 3 bucket. So similar to what I had said with Scotty Scheffler, how expensive he is, Rory McIlroy is pretty expensive too. And any of the other 10K golfers finish inside the top 10, just like Rory, he, even if he does finish inside the top 10, might not be a golfer you want to build your lineups around. And also, that projection of 1 to 3, I would then change down to 0 to 2, just because of how expensive he is. So this projection could be 0 to 2, and then just anticipate that Rory McIlroy will finish inside the top 10, but won't help you win a GPP. You could certainly do it that way. You could think of it that way. And then that way you limit yourself to only 2 of these golfers, which seems ridiculous because it looks like there's a lot of talent in this bucket. But the fact of the matter remains, the reason I look at this every single year is to limit bad plays. And putting too many golfers from one bucket in your lineup is bad. You want at least 5 of your guys inside the top 10, if not all 6, in order to take down a GPP. So that's why I will ignore I won't ignore, I should say. I will limit myself. If I'm not starting in my lineups with Rory, then I only want 0 to 2 of these guys. But it is possible that 3, yeah, I'll still keep the projection 0 to 3. I'll just, yeah, that's fine. Because it is possible that Rory just doesn't finish inside the top 10. And maybe, you know, 1 or 2, maybe even 3 of these guys do finish inside the top 10. I don't know, keep your options open. Let's just put it that way. Keep them open. And the last bucket are golfers who did not play. This is a 0 to 2 bucket, and we see the same amount of golfers in this field than we typically do on average. So again, you just look at the last year's 6s. And it starts with Patrick Reed, Thomas Dietrich, the only guys in the 7K range, and then drops into 6K golfers. So 0 to 2 seems like a wonderful projection. Now, we've seen at least one inside the top 10 every single year. However, it only has a 2.35% success rate. So that means of all golfers from this bucket, all of them, going all the way back to 2014, of every golfer that represented this bucket during the time they played, only 2% of them, 2.35% of them finished inside the top 10. So if you think about that, if there's an average of 60 golfers and 2%, if you were to double that number, you would also double the 2%. It would become 4%. Just pretend that's 100. So that means 4 golfers from this bucket at most, we could anticipate finishing inside the top 10. But that's not exactly how it works. The number would be closer to 3. So we could anticipate maybe up to 3 golfers finishing inside the top 10, but no more. And again, there's 68 golfers in that bucket. I don't think there's a lot of really good names that are in this bucket. I mean, you got Chris Goddard that just won last week. Andrew Novak, Matty Schmid, Bud Cott. Like, a lot of these guys have been playing some really good golf. But this is the beauty of the bucket system. In the past, hasn't proved to be a good bucket to choose golfers from. So take that with a grain of sand and go from there. You do you. You choose however you want to. I'm just laying out foundations, limitations, I guess, to not hamstring your lineup with bad plays. Let's go ahead and move to the next stat category, which will be last week. So we're looking at all the golfers who played last week or who did not play. And we're looking at each of the buckets that they represent. So last week ones mean they finished inside the top 20 of last week's event. Now, I believe there are only 2 golfers that played in the alternate event that qualified for this Open Championship. So they will be, they will have finished, I think they both missed the cut. I think one guy withdrew and another guy missed the cut from the ISCO Championship. And they'll be part of the last week 5, or yeah, they will be part of the last week 5 bucket, but everyone else that did play last week would be from the Genesis Scottish Open. And some of those will be golfers who missed the cut last week. So just throwing that out there. The first bucket, and the ranges are the same. 1 to 20, 21 to 40, 41 to 60, 61 to 80, 80 plus, and did not play. First bucket's 1 to 4. And if you haven't guessed it already, Scotty Scheffler is in that bucket. So these are all golfers who finished inside the top 20 last week. Again, that includes Scotty. So again, because Scotty's in this bucket, let's put a filter on that. And this becomes, believe it or not, a 0 to 4 bucket. You could almost look at it as like a 0 to 3 bucket if you just anticipate Scotty finishing inside the top 10. But you do have Rory here. We have Xander. We have a lot of good golfers, and I am very excited to play a lot of these golfers from this bucket. Now, the other thing with this is I will use the optimizer that I have. I build lineups using an optimizer. I do that every Tuesday night, and it takes into consideration all of these bucket conditionals and builds lineups based off of what we need from each bucket. So if you want access to that, you can go to the website and go under optimizer. So drill down on optimizer, and a pop-up will end up coming on the screen asking you to put in your email address and then a button to say request now. So there you have it right here. and then an email will get sent to me, and I will send you the optimizer when I get around to it. Okay, so this bucket's a 1 to 4, but like I said, 0 to 4 works, or even 0 to 3 if you just want to exclude Scotty from your player pool. Then I would say 0 to 3 or 0 to 4. And just live with that. I think that's fine. And again, primaries, because I do think Scotty is just a shoe-in to finish inside the top 10. And at 14,200, he might not pay off his price tag. I'm not going to go through the rest of these golfers. I guess some notable names. Christopher Wrighton is decent. Matty Schmid is also a good play. I do like Nikolai Højgaard. I wanted a Højgaard brother in my lineups, and Rasmus until the end of the Scottish Open. Rasmus was the only guy in the field for the Højgaard brothers. But Nikolai earned his way in there, so I wouldn't mind going to Nikolai. And then the rest of these guys are good. Like, I have no issue playing Wyndham Clark, Chris Gotterup, Adam Scott, Straka, Rose, Fitzpatrick. I mean, they're all good. All of them are good. The next bucket to look at are last week 2 golfers. This is a 0 to 2. In fact, the next 4 buckets are 0 to 2 buckets. So when we take a look, there's Fleetwood and JT. This is the wonderful thing again about the bucket system. We have other golfers that overlap. You know, Harris English, Mav McNeely. I didn't talk about him when he was in the last year 5 bucket. But if you liked him and you don't like anyone else in this bucket or anyone else that was in that last year 5 bucket, then Mav McNeely is your guy. And then you just build lineups that way. But there are some decent names. I like Nico Echeverria. I like Nick Taylor, Harris English. I like JT, and I like Fleetwood. I got no issue playing those guys. But remember, the projection here is 0 to 2. Bucket 3 starts with Sam Burns, and this is a 0 to 2 bucket. Look at the rest of the golfers in this bucket. I don't mind playing Corey Connors. He's been battling a wrist injury for a long time, so I don't know what really to expect from him at this event. Don't really care for Brian Harman. Don't really care for Aaron Rai, although I don't mind playing Aaron Rai. Danny Berger has been so underwhelming the last 2 months that, look, listen, he probably has the talent to play really well here, but I don't know if I really care to play him. Thorbjorn Olesen, I think that's fine. I'm not really rushing to play him. Matt Wallace, not really rushing to play him, but I do like Bud Cauley. So if it's like, I like Bud Cauley, I like Sam Burns the most out of this bucket, but Bud Cauley would be my second, and he's a full $1,300 cheaper than Sam Burns. And remember, this bucket is only a 0 to 2 projection. Jesper Svensson is a speculative play I like. Romain Langesk is fine. I do like Daniel Brown as well. At $5,800, it seems like a pretty good value. All right, moving on to the next one. We know this is another 0 to 2 bucket, and there aren't many golfers in this one, 6. So, but good names nonetheless. Bobby Mack, Ryan Fox, Dietrich, Benny Ann. I think those are all good golfers. The other 2 I don't really care for. Kuvra and Harrington, not a big deal to me. Last week 5, so golfers who missed the cut last week. We want 0 to 2 from here, and then when we get to did not plays, this is going to be a 1 to 4 bucket, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this will be a 1 to 4 bucket, so I'll have to remember that when we get there. There's another 0 to 2 bucket, the golfers who missed the cut last week, and guess what? Colin Morikawa was the most expensive golfer in this bucket by $1,800. If you like him, perfect. If not, fade him. Again, I'm going to be on Tristan Lawrence just because my buddy Byron tells me I should be. He doesn't really say that, but I know what he really means when he talks him up. The rest of the guys down here don't really care. 5K golfers, nah, don't. Not important for me to get my or to have my lineup, or to have any of these golfers in my lineup. Okay. I don't have anything else to talk about with that bucket. The last one, like I said, this will be a 1 to 4 bucket. And it starts with John Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau. We do have Shane Lowry, Tyrrell Hatton. Now, this bucket is a did not play bucket. And most of you are probably saying, these guys were on the Live Tour and they played last week. Yeah, I don't keep track of the Live Tour. So they will be included in the did not plays. It's worked in the past. I don't mind using it right now. So I'll use it now. There are some good names in here, and I don't know if I really want to anchor around any of these golfers. Especially if my lineup starts with Scottie Scheffler. There's nobody in here that I want to anchor my lineups around with a Scottie Scheffler lineup. Because there are other buckets that I want to anchor my lineups around that are in Scottie Scheffler lineups that aren't named Scottie Scheffler. And it's just, there's nobody here that really catches my eye when it comes to that kind of lineup build. Okay, so that covers the last year and last week buckets. Let's go ahead and get into the course history buckets, which again is recent form. Oh, not recent form, I'm sorry. Tournament history. What am I talking about? I'm jumping ahead. So this is really tournament history. Course history ones. 0 to 2 is our projection. And if you didn't see on the screen already, it is Scottie Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Jordan Spieth, Cam Young, Daniel Brown, who I've said I've liked, and then Saddam Kawakanjana. I have no idea how to pronounce that last name. But anyways, 0 to 2 is the projection. Remember, there's a Scottie Scheffler filter, which means you can make this a 0 to 1 bucket if you don't want to play Scottie Scheffler, which seems dangerous because there are still good golfers right here. But I do not mind living on that idea that if you're not playing Scottie, then you don't want to play 2 or more of these golfers. You just want to play 1. So if you liked a Xander Jordan Spieth combo, or a Xander Cam Young combo, or even a Xander Daniel Brown combo, maybe stay away. Maybe just pick one of them and then move on. Like I said, I do like Scottie. And really, if you wanted to pair up Scottie with Daniel Brown, it seems like such a perfect combination to start your lineups with, because it really, you know, equals out or averages out their salaries together, meaning you can put more expensive golfers in your lineup. And the fact, if you were to choose those two, then gets rid of these golfers. And it just makes lineup building a little bit easier. Not extremely easier, because you're only really you're losing out on 3 golfers, but still, it should be somewhat easy. All right, course history 2, 21 to 40. I'm going to make this a 0 to, well, technically it's a 1 to 3 projected bucket, but it's really close to 0 to 3. And we can actually make this distinction by looking at the golfers in the bucket, and it's not a 0 to 3 bucket. McIlroy and Rahm are in it, so it's automatically, in my opinion, a 1, because I do believe one of those guys can finish inside the top 10 somewhat easily. Same goes with Victor Hovland. Yeah, he's just too good. Those 3 golfers together are just too good for one of them not being inside the top 10. So I would say this is a 1 to 3 projected bucket. But once again, you have to make up your mind. Is Rory or Rahm better, or in your head, a better choice than Scottie Scheffler? And if they're not, but your reasoning is why you're not playing Scottie is because he's too expensive, I would then say you probably want to ignore these guys as well. Because like it would have to be, in order for that type of mindset to work, Scottie would have to win and one of these guys would have to finish second, which isn't unreasonable or implausible, but it's just like, now we're really nitpicking. I don't think something like that actually happens. I do think they, you know, all 3 of them, Rahm, McIlroy, and Scheffler, could finish inside the top 10. And then it just really depends on who scored more DraftKings points. And I imagine that finishing position is going to be really important this week, because I don't think scoring is going to be super easy. So it's really up to you guys. If you do think Scottie is going to play better, or he's going to be inside the top 10, chances are one of these guys will also finish inside the top 10, which will make it really difficult to build a lineup with that many expensive guys inside the top 10, trying to find the glue pieces down here to catapult your lineup ahead of those other lineups. So just my 2 cents. I've won a couple GPPs in the past, just the quarter arcade GPPs, not the big old $5. And it just kind of requires lineup building, just how I mentioned it. Okay. Course History 3 is the next bucket to look at. And this is a 1 to 4 projected bucket. 1 to 4. Starts with DeChambeau, and then it goes into Fleetwood, Shane Lowry in the 9K range, Hatton, Morikawa, Thomas, and Koepka in the 8K range, and it drops down in the 7K range. I like this bucket. Has a lot of golfers I want to play. JT's one of them. Fleetwood's another. Fitzpatrick's another. Sam Burns is another. Just those 4 alone, I could build lineup with. If you've been to this channel before, you know I advocate to start your lineups with a 10K golfer, a 9K golfer, an 8K golfer, 2 7K golfers, and 1 6K. Well, on the screen, I've got a 9-8 and 2-7 start. So I could just grab a 10K golfer, put him in my lineup, and then put a 5K golfer in there somewhere. I could do that. It would work out. So this bucket offers a lot of choices that you can do with lineups. Course History 4, 0 to 2 is the projection here. And that starts in 8,200. I'm actually just going to skip this bucket. I don't need to talk about every bucket in the golfers that are in it, especially if it's not at least one golfer that we want to play. So skip that one. Course History 5. This is a 0 to 2. Now this is the course history where it's the worst course history, worst tournament history, I should say, in the field. Ludwig is in this bucket. He's the most expensive golfer. Then it's Ben Griffin at 73, and then it drops from $6,800 and down. So again, another good reason why, oh yeah, this bucket, 0 to 2, that's the projection. Don't really care. And I mean, perfectly reasonable not to care about this bucket. There aren't enough golfers in it, and the successes are not good enough to anchor your lineups around, which is very interesting because you've got Marco Penge, who finished 2nd last week. Now, he probably only played this event once and missed the cut, but that still counts. That still counts. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could put Denny in your lineup, but you know what you kind of get with Denny. Podgator, same thing. It's a very volatile bucket. Just not sure what to do with it. The last one to talk about are golfers who did not play. They have never played this event, ever. And I should say ever as in the last, and since 2013. So you might see an old person on here that may have played this turn or played an Open Championship, but it would have been before the data, like before I started recording data, which again was in 2013. This bucket projection 0 to 2. If you watched my video on the course and tournament information as well as the DraftKings first take, I said, don't get too cute. Don't put European only golfers, you know, the golfers only on the DP World Tour, not on the PGA Tour. Don't focus on putting those golfers in your lineup. And I already see there are a few of these golfers in this bucket that I would deem as European only golfers, non-PGA Tour golfers. Just a big bucket with bad golfers in it. It's up to you. 0 to 2 is the projection for that bucket. And again, that was tournament history, not course history. Moving on to recent form. Now, does it matter if golfers are coming in here with a really good recent form, or does it not matter? This is where you would find it out. So again, I'm going to make sure that no active filters are on, and we just look at recent form 1 golfers. And the projection here is 0 to 2. We normally see 13, and we have 12 this week. Now, there's a 9% frequency rate, meaning it's a high likelihood that this bucket will represent or produce another top 10 finisher. Top optimal lineup and top 5 frequencies are pretty good as well. So let's take a look at recent Form 1s, and we got Scotty, John Rahm, Tyrrell Hatton, Brooks, Henley, Fitzpatrick, Burns. Okay, perfect. Now, here's the thing that sucks for me. I would have loved to have built a Scotty, Fitzpatrick, Burns lineup. And technically, I still could. I don't have to follow the sweet spot rules to 100% perfection. But if I'm going to start my lineup builds with the golfers that I had highlighted, Scotty, Fitzpatrick, and Burns, I'm only going to do it once. I build over 100 lineups. I'm only going to have one of these, a lineup with these 3 golfers in it just once. That's it. Because again, I like to follow the sweet spot process to a T. I follow it perfectly. So super interesting there. Recent Form 2s. This is a 2 to 5 bucket, believe it or not. This is a big, beefy bucket. We have Rory McIlroy at $11,500, $9,700 Schauffele, $9,500 Fleetwood, $9,100 Oberg, and $9,000 McIntyre. So 5 golfers 9K and above. Again, the Sky Scheffler filter still applies. We could actually bump the projection down from 2 to 5 to 1 to 4. Still a lot of golfers to choose from, but it just limits you just a little bit more so you don't pick all your golfers from this bucket. Yeah. Yep. That works for me. And there's a lot of good golfers in this one too. Again, if I talk about some of these golfers, it's just going to be redundant. So hopefully you checked out previous buckets. Going into recent Form 3s, we have Lowry at $9,300, and then it goes from $60 or $7,600 down pretty fast. So the projection for this bucket is 1 to 3. I guess you could put a Sky Scheffler filter on this because of Shane Lowry could be the one guy, but unlikely, really unlikely. You almost could keep this projection as is because Scotty Scheffler with 2 of these guys would be just fine. Even 3 of these guys would be just fine. So 1 to 3, we can keep it 1 to 3. And I'm using Scotty Scheffler as an example, not only because he's the best golfer in the world and that I think he's got a really good chance to win this week, it's because he's the most expensive golfer, and we have to make choices based off of what are we going to do with Scotty. If it's a complete fade, I want you guys to understand what you're getting yourself into. I want you to know how to read the bucket system a little bit better if that's the case. Because it does change. And Scotty could still finish inside the top 10 and not help you win a GPP, might only help you min cash because you couldn't afford having the other golfers inside the top 10, whoever they might be. Obviously, I'm not Nostradamus. I wouldn't be here. I can't predict the future. Recent Form 5 and Recent Form 6, I don't really care to really go into these in depth. I just want to take a look. Actually, let's take a look at Recent Form 4. Yeah, not super great golfers here. 0 to 2 is the projection. Go to Recent Form 5s. $10,100 Bryson DeChambeau, and that's because he missed the cut at the US Open. That's the only event for these live golfers that is showing up for recent form is just from the US Open. Neiman, 8,200. Yeah, this is a perfect 0 to 2 bucket, honestly. Then recent form 6s would be the last bucket, and you got Sergio and Dean Burmester, as well as Louis Oosthuizen. And Lee Wester is just a blast from the past. These golfers haven't played in the last 6 weeks on the PGA Tour. That's why they are here, or last 7 weeks, I should say. That's why they're in this bucket. So another 0 to 2 bucket to choose golfers from. All right. Now we get into kind of just buckets. Okay, we'll talk about the salary buckets because they're next on the list. I'm not going to go into the actual golfers and show you who they are. I will mention that on the cheat sheet, there is a price conversion tool that I have, a tab at the bottom. What I end up doing is whenever there's a 5K range, like there is this week, I adjust all of the salaries to somehow be similar to what an average contest on DraftKings would have, like for salaries on golfers. You know, we don't normally see 14,200 for the top price guy, and we also don't normally see a $5,000 golfer. Everybody is 6K and above on a normal week on DraftKings. So in order to analyze these stats, I think it's really important to figure out how to convert them to make it more normalized. Like, get it more familiar with what we have seen every single year, every single week. So I do an adjustment. And here's what the most important thing you need to listen to. For my 10K golfers, it is $10,100 and above. That includes an $11,000 golfer. That includes a $14,000 golfer. My 9K range starts at $9,700 and it goes down to $8,700. So there's actually two golfers from the 8K range represented in this overall bucket. I'm sorry, the 9K range. I shouldn't say overall bucket like there's a ton of golfers there, but they represent the 9K range. Golfers who represent the 8K range, price tags 85 down to 7,500. Yeah, 7,500. And there's a few of these. There's 5 of them. 75, 76, 77, 78, 79. They're all an 8K golfer, in my opinion, because that's where they normally would be on a regular event where there's no 5K range. 7K is really tricky. It goes from $7,400 down to $6,400. There's a high 6K range. And really the easiest way to do, I guess, to figure out who all the golfers are is basically click on one of the cells that has the tiers next to them and just kind of click and drag off to the right. And then you can see everybody that would be in the high 6K tier. And then you can see the filters or the shadows, they kind of just disappear. I shouldn't even say disappear. I don't know what I was getting at with that. I'm losing my mind slowly but surely. Yeah, this is your high 6K range, $6,300 down to $5,600. And then $5,500 and below would make up the rest of the salary buckets. So one thing to note, just to show you guys, I do this every single week and every single year, especially when there's a 5K range. If I go to the salary buckets that I actually have recorded, when I look at how many golfers are in the bucket this week, so this is salary buckets. It's based off of what is in this field. There are 4 10K and above golfers. There are 7 9K golfers. There are 10 8K golfers, and it goes 39, 48, 48. Why these numbers? You might be asking yourself, well, look at how every other year fares. Normally we see 5.71 10K golfers in this field. Normally we see 7.29 9K golfers in this field. We have 7 this year. Typically you see 9.71 8K golfers. Well, we got 10 this year. 37 7Ks, we have 39. 40 high 6Ks, we do have 48, so that's a bit high. And really what I could do is maybe remove some golfers from this bucket and add it to the next one, because that one's a 54 and we only have 48. So obviously I could change 4 golfers from here, like remove 4 golfers from here and add them here. So you'd have 44 golfers in this bucket and 52 in this one. And it might seem more representative or, you know, similar to other years, but I just don't care. I'm not going that way. I'm going to keep it as is. 10-1 and above, 80. Oh, I already went through this. If you want to take a look at what my salary ranges are, rewind a little bit where I show you this page right here, which is called the price conversion tool. So go take a look there. All right, the last set of stats to talk about is the strokes gained buckets. Now, again, you can read all about this under articles at SweetSpotDFS.com, drilling down into the bucket system and seeing this. This will explain what the strokes gained stats are, and I have it on the screen right now. I'll remove the highlight, but you can read all about it. Strokes gained stats right here. There's also a video in the description that'll explain all about it as well. So you have been given as much as I can give you when it comes to understanding what strokes gained stats are. But if you're following along with me on the cheat sheet, easy thing to do here is, again, clear out any of the filters that you currently have and then go into strokes gained stats and only select one. Actually, you know what? How about this? Let's do this a little differently. I color code these to be a little easier, and what we can do is just sort A to Z, and you can see they're all color coordinated this way. So we have 20 total golfers that are strokes gained 1 golfers. We can see that's validated right here. And the projection is 2 to 4. Could actually be 1 to 4. And I think what I'm going to end up saying is, because Scotty Scheffler is in this bucket, we make this a 1 to 3 bucket. And we exclude Scotty from any of the projections. I think that's the smartest thing to do. Because quite frankly, I mean, these golfers 97 and above, or maybe even 95 and above, 2 of them could finish inside the top 10 quite easily, and you couldn't put 2 of them in your lineup. So I think you want to restrict this bucket no matter what. And unfortunately, the projections can't put that in there. At least I haven't figured out a way. I guess I could, but I haven't figured out a way how to make that fair or proper. So just throwing that out there. The next bucket, 1 to 3 strokes gained 2 golfers. Okay, let's take a look at who those golfers are. We can already tell that we don't have to worry about Scotty or Rory. It starts with DeChambeau, 10-1. So I guess we do have to worry about Scotty and Rory, because if those 2 golfers, and even Rahm, if those 3 golfers finish inside the top 10 and better than DeChambeau inside the top 10, if any one of them, I should say, then you most likely won't be able to put Bryson in your lineup and take down a GPP. So at that point in time, it's like, well, what would be the point? So throwing that out there. I do like seeing Neiman and Fitzpatrick in this line, or in the strokes gained 2 bucket. I also like seeing Jordan Spieth and Sam Burns, as well as Sepp Straka. Like, this is all music to my ears. I like almost everybody, not everybody, but a lot of golfers from this bucket. And remember, it's a 1 to 3 projection. But keep Rory and Scotty in mind. This could be a 0 to 2 or a 0 to 3 projection, especially if Bryson can actually pull it off at the Open, which I doubt it. So you can be pretty comfortable making this a 0 to 3 bucket and it being just fine. The next one, strokes gained 3. 1 to 3, but I know this is low enough to be 0 to 3. We can take a look at who the golfers are. Starts with Shane Lowry, who is your Royal Portrush defending champion. Ludwig Oberg, 91. Tyrrell Hatton, 89. So we have 6 total golfers that are 8K and above. Are any of them that good that you really want to anchor your lineups around? I'd say no. I actually don't even think I'm going to anchor any. Like, I'm not going to make this a bucket that the optimizer has to pick a golfer from. I'm going to make this a 0 to 3 projection and just move on. I think that's fine. Stroke chain 4, 0 to 2. Now, these are golfers that don't have very good off the tee stats, and it starts with Henley and Matsuyama. Matsuyama is more of an accuracy issue. Henley is more of a distance issue. But you can go through the list and make your own distinctions as to why these golfers are bad at driving the golf ball. There's probably a good reason why. But it starts at $7,900 and it goes down. There's no anchor plays in here for me. I'll let the optimizer just select them by random, by choice, by random. The next one, Tony Finau, Tom Kim, Saad Theegala, guys coming back from injuries or legal things or, you know, just issues. It's fitting there in this bucket. Normally this bucket is the most unsuccessful bucket to get golfers from, but 0 to 2 is a projection, and I don't mind playing up to 2 golfers from this bucket. The last one is also a 0 to 2 bucket, and it's just a lot of live golfers or brand new DP World Tour golfers that qualified for the Open, or it might be even Challenge Tour golfers that qualified for the Open as well. So I would ignore this bucket. Let's see. Yeah, 0.9%, almost 1% success rate. So we normally see 51 golfers every single year. 0.1%. 0.1. That's not even one golfer. That's, I think, like 1/4 of a golfer it ends up being. I think that's how you do the math on that one. Either way, not a good bucket to anchor your lineups around, but we did go over quite a few buckets that I think you should anchor your lineups around, or grab golfers from those buckets. So that's how you would review the bucket system. That's all that I have in this video. If you have questions, reach out to me. I will go live Tuesday. Let me go ahead and put this back up on the screen. I will go live Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you got any questions, come in and ask me there. Otherwise, there's an email address right here that you can reach out to me. I also look at my DMs on X/Twitter. Reach out to me. Let me know. If you got any questions on the bucket system, I will be building lineups tomorrow night using the bucket system conditionals. So I just need you guys to come in with 2 to 4 golfers to build your lineups around, and I'll do just that. I'll build lineups for you guys using the Sweet Spot process. So there's that. And just another quick reminder, $1,000 I will give away once this channel reaches 1,000 subscribers. $1,000 for 1,000 subscribers. I'm depending on you guys for that. So that's it, everyone. I will see you tomorrow in that live stream. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.